the nuclear facility strikes and any potential counter strikes. Obviously, this morning, Iran fired about a little more than a dozen missiles at U.S. targets in what we now know is essentially a ceremonial thing. All 13 out of 14 of them were shot down, and one of them was allowed to just peter off into an area that wasn't going to cause any danger to American targets. And there was no counterattack from Trump. They let him do that. They let Iran do that. My guess is there might be some sort of coup going on behind the scenes, because this is all very interesting. By the way, I hope you appreciate it.
This is his new batch of improved video, better videos, since this is uploaded Tuesday. He started his good ones on Monday, so just thinking at the beginning here, he's totally still.
That's right, everyone. Jeremy here from the Coincidal. Donald Trump has just announced a potential ceasefire between Israel and Iran, and poor Mega is taking a huge victory lap for not swaying from their 12th hour. Israel will start.
Some may need.
If you skip, it goes to commercial.
On the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war. It was weird to me. It's like, hey, we agreed to a ceasefire. Aww. In Iran, that there will be a complete total ceasefire. And a lot of extra pizzazz to those. But let's talk about first the moment where Trump did, in fact, announce the ceasefire. Here's Brett Baer in real time responding to it. I want to read this fully so I get the context. Yeah. Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the ceasefire for 12 hours, at which point the war... That stuff always was weird to me. It's like, hey, we agreed to a ceasefire. Aw, well, I was going to bomb these other things. Oh, okay, we could bomb those things, and then you could... Why isn't it just, if you're going to ceasefire, ceasefire it right there. By the way, if you're enjoying the news coverage, please do leave a like on the video, and if you haven't yet, please do subscribe or follow down below. I know maybe you have to create an account or whatever, and it's a pain in the butt. However, I really, really would like to see some numbers go positive again. War will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire upon the 12th hour. Israel will start the ceasefire upon the 24th hour. An official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. Now, again, great. But there is some stuff now. You guys know that I've tried to remain optimistic, and this was probably the best possible outcome after the strikes. Because I would have preferred not to have the strikes in the first place. But then there's some questions though, right? This is on CNN. Oh, this is 90 minutes ago. So this was after Trump announced it, right? Israel military issues new evacuation warning for Tehran. So they're already like, hey, we're doing these strikes anyway. Iran says they have not received any ceasefire proposal. Senior officials say Iran has not received any ceasefire proposal and sees no reason for one. A senior Iranian official told CNN. The official said that Iran would continue to fight until it achieves lasting peace, and that it would view remarks from Israel and the United States as a deception intended to justify attacks on Iran's interests. At this very moment, the enemy is committing aggression against Iran, and Iran is on the verge of intensifying its retaliatory strikes, with no ear to listen to the lies of our enemies, the official said. Now, we know that Iran and Israel do love their propaganda, but right now, the Qatari airspace is reopened. This is a minute issue. Israel issued evacuation warnings for parts of Tehran. Military, again, this is in District 7. I don't know. 12 minutes ago, the blast was heard in Tehran. But what's interesting is, Trump saying there's a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Iran, but Iran is denying that. That's what's very interesting. Vance also said he read a draft of Trump's post 2 minutes before it went to air and said that it's a little bit different than what the president showed me a couple of hours ago. But again, I knew they were working on the phones and was trying, as I was over here. Iran is incapable of building a nuclear weapon with the equipment it has because we destroyed it, Vance added. CNN has reached out to the White House for additional information. So, is the ceasefire real? To me, it seems weird that you would say, hey, we're going to have a ceasefire in 12 hours and not just say right now. Obviously, we have the Supreme Leader's Twitter account coming out. Who's actually hours and not just say right now. Obviously, we have the Supreme Leader's Twitter account coming out. Who's actually putting out these who's putting out these statements?
Yeah, the leader of the president of Iran, literally called the supreme leader because he's a theocracy. I don't know what other places are theocracies. Let us ask. Which countries in the world are theocracies? Israel's not even a theocracy. I think it's barely, I would say only a handful. Yeah, that's me. Oh, of course, I just see that. Saudi Arabia. Oh, wow. Yeah, don't go there, no. My uncle went there. He did work there. Sudan. Really? Well, that's interesting.
I don't know. Many believe that, Khamenei is gone, and maybe this peace deal was actually dedicated. I suspect that perhaps the ceasefire was negotiated with whatever regime was replacing him. That's very, very likely. He put this up. Those who know the Iranian people and their history know the Iranian nation isn't a nation that surrenders. Well, okay, maybe. Maybe. Now, this is the first time he's put out a message, hey, look, we're not surrendering. He could be trying to save face with his people, and saying, hey, it's not a surrender, we're going to carry out these missions. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war.
It could be up with oil again, like with Iraq, because this prepper girl is saying they raised prices, during the war. If this was a war, I mean during this war, or the shortage was. So again with oil, of course, that means overpop. And since I'm right a lot of times, it could really be the EMF causing the overpop.
Things that could go wrong here. Iran could continue to fire official end to the 12-day war. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things that could go wrong here. Iran could continue to fire. Bibi Netanyahu could continue to carry out his strikes regardless of what America says. Now, Donald Trump they said earlier that he was leaning on Bibi Netanyahu to get involved here. This says a complete ceasefire has been agreed to by Israel and Iran beginning in approximately 6 hours. So that would be maybe midnight our time, roughly. There's a lot of people are still saying, is this really done? Did Trump really negotiate this? I don't know. If we go to Trump's Truth Social, he himself had said that he would be, putting some pressure on Netanyahu to end this war. And I don't know if it was even a war, to be honest with you. This was 54 minutes ago when he talked about, here's the ceasefire, congratulations world, it's time for peace. That was 2 hours ago. And then here you see, I'd like to thank the highly respected Emir Qatar for all these done in seeking peace for the region regarding the attack on today's American base in Qatar. I'm pleased to report that in addition to no Americans being lost or wounded, very importantly, there have also been no Qataris or wounded, And you see here 3 hours ago, this is where it started. Iran has officially responded to our obliteration of their nuclear facilities with a very weak response, which we expected and have effectively countered. The regime, I don't know, because U.S. Vice President deflection asked if the administration knows the locations of Iran's enriched uranium. Be concerned. And this is, again, what we destroyed is their ability to enrich. I guess we'll know. I'm not going to put out a video at 2 o'clock in the morning, but we'll see how quickly, if somebody blinks here or if this is actually going to follow through. I'm nervous that, Trump is so, so 100% sure, and then you have Iran saying we haven't surrendered. But here now, just minutes ago, actually, Iranian sources confirmed the ceasefire deal. Informed Iranian sources.
For the United States to have attacked Iran,
the U.S. I think it's going to be ceasefire. I mean, I hope we have 6 months for this 2025 goddess constant thing to be over with. Well, you say over with, but you don't want to, something. Let's have something good instead of something horrible. This is peak everything.
It's hit 3 nuclear sites in Iran overnight,
bombing its key nuclear facilities.
The successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran.
You'd think it would have to have been very sure Iran was developing a nuclear weapon.
Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat.
Iran has all that it needs to achieve a nuclear weapon. All they need is a decision from the Supreme Leader to do that, and it would take a couple of weeks to complete the production of that weapon.
But how do they know? For a long time, Iran has said it is not building a bomb, at least not at the moment. So let's try to understand Iran's position and why much of the West believes.
Yeah, I need to study Iran. If the West hates Iran so much, let me study a little. The only really thing I remember is the Rick Steves going there and them being so friendly, the Iranians. And that was like decades ago. But I saw it within this decade.
It is a lie. Iran's nuclear program is one of the most closely watched in the world and has been for decades. The International Atomic Energy Agency spent years piecing together accusations and evidence from the 80s and 90s, which raised serious questions about whether Iran was trying to build a bomb. It's attempted to obtain uranium, transform that uranium into fuel, develop a detonator, model nuclear explosions, even pack a prospective bomb into the warhead of a missile.
The U.S. intelligence community has long assessed that Iran has a nuclear weapons capability. Prior to 2003, Iran gained critical knowledge about the type of explosive that's necessary to build a nuclear device.
But one key conclusion from the world.
Here's the thing, regardless of actually if they do or not, actually it's not even that, if they have the capability to do it, it's their ideology. If the ideology is just so extreme, yeah, the U.S. is going to do everything. They shouldn't lie, the U.S. shouldn't lie, but, I'll have to see, I'll have to research it, I don't know yet.
World's nuclear watchdog, whatever Iran was doing, this emphasis on weaponizing nuclear power, the nagging fear of the possible military dimensions of its nuclear program, it all came to a stop in 2003. They have politics.
But it all, I think it all comes down again to the resources, the oil. It's again with the oil. Same thing over and over again.
We don't fully understand the Iran politics.
Colonization.
But they had a real nuclear weapons program until 2003, and that was revealed publicly. And for reasons that very few people understand, the Supreme Leader halted the program.
Iran's Supreme Leader would even issue an oral fatwa, a religious decree, forbidding the development or use of any kind of weapon of mass destruction.
President Bush has said, he will not allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. You believe it?
Well, today's
Yeah, see that pause? No, he's going to... Is this the guy that... No, I don't know if this is the guy that... In 1979, when this all started, and they switched from being allies of Israel to not, with the new regime, Iranian regime new. Yeah. So, yeah, you look... Here's the thing, you gotta look their face. You gotta look them in the eye. See who you're dealing with. The body language tells you all. See what the opponent is, and this guy's lying. They absolutely would.
If you're not looking for working for the bomb, maybe
This guy definitely would. He definitely would. I can almost be saying, yeah.
time of the bomb and its effectiveness is behind us. But nuclear power, energy, that's different. Iran claims it is very much interested in developing that because the country does have a serious energy problem. Aging infrastructure and heavier consumption that's led to recurring blackouts over the last several years.
So it's like South Africa with its, what do you call it? Power shedding. Load shedding.
Iran does have a nuclear power plant in Bushehr. Iran does have a nuclear power plant in Bushehr, right here on its southwestern coast, in operation for more than a decade. But let's take a closer look at what that plant does and whether it's plausible that Iran's nuclear program is, as they say, completely peaceful. An important thing to realize about any country's nuclear program is that there can be two components to it, making fuel or converting fuel into energy. A nuclear power plant, that makes energy. A uranium enrichment facility, that makes fuel. So one of the first things we wondered about fuel into energy. A nuclear power plant about any country's nuclear program is that there can be two components to it. An important thing to realize about any country's nuclear program is that there can be two components to it, making fuel or converting fuel into energy. A nuclear power plant, that makes energy. A uranium enrichment facility, that makes fuel. Making fuel or converting fuel into energy. A nuclear power plant, that makes energy. A uranium enrichment facility, that makes fuel. So one of the first things we wondered about Iran's energy needs was whether it is so truly dependent on nuclear power that it makes economic sense for it to make its own fuel.
People who love design love.
Because, just to give you an analogy, lots of people own cars, right? Very normal thing to own. It's much less normal, though, to own your own gas station, and it's even less normal than that to make your own gas. You could, but man, that's a lot of work, and the math wouldn't really add up, would it? So Iran's a big country, 90 million people. But the electricity it generates by nuclear power, just 1% of its total output.
Well, 90 million, that's already 3 times more than it should be.
Natural gas represents the lion's share, and hydropower is a very distant second. So one thing that doesn't quite line up is Iran's total output. Natural gas represents the lion's share, and hydropower is a very distant second. So one thing that doesn't quite line up is Iran's massive expenditure of time, energy, and money, the billions of dollars, years of investment, and the procurement of highly sensitive, specialized equipment and expertise to enrich uranium, to make nuclear fuel from scratch.
Iran has likely spent hundreds of billions of dollars.
Equipment and
How many minutes in like 12 minutes?
expertise to enrich uranium.
Wow, look at that. Look at that.
To make nuclear fuel from scratch.
Iran has likely spent hundreds of billions of dollars on their uranium enrichment program.
At the low end, I've heard as close to $100 billion over
Scratch.
Iran has likely spent hundreds of billions of dollars on their
Stricker. I like her name.
uranium enrichment program.
At the low end, I've heard as close to $100 billion over the last 25
Iran has likely spent hundreds of billions of dollars on their uranium enrichment program.
At the low end, I've heard as close to $100 billion over the last 25 years. But if you add all the opportunity costs, including U.S. sanctions and international sanctions and export controls, it could be up to $500 billion.
And there's almost no nuclear-powered country in the world that does this quite like Iran does. Take France, with its 57 usable nuclear reactors. You know how many enrichment facilities in the world?
Including U.S. sanctions and international sanctions and export controls, it could be up to $500 billion.
And there's almost no nuclear-powered country in the world that
Program.
At the low end, I've heard as
make nuclear fuel from scratch.
Iran has likely spent hundreds of billions of dollars on their uranium enrichment program.
At the low end, I've heard as close to $100 billion over the last 25 years. But if you add all the opportunity costs, including U.S. sanctions and international sanctions and export controls, it could be up to $500 billion.
And there's almost no nuclear-powered country in the world that does this quite like Iran does. Take France, with its 57 usable nuclear reactors. You know how many enrichment facilities it has to make the nuclear fuel it needs to power those reactors? Just one. How about Japan? 33 usable reactors, 1 enrichment facility. Canada has 22 reactors, and it does not enrich its own uranium at all. It buys it from the United States. Speaking of the U.S., it has more nuclear reactors and more nuclear weapons than any other country on Earth, but it too has just 1 enrichment facility. Finally, here's Iran. They've got 1 reactor, but at least 2 enrichment facilities, one of them buried hundreds of feet under a literal mountain, which the U.S. just bombed, but where otherwise the outside world has had almost no way to reach.
Iran doesn't even need to enrich uranium domestically. It could join 23 other countries that forswear enriching uranium because it is not economic.
You gotta ask yourself the question is, why does a nation with 1 single world has had almost no way to reach?
Iran doesn't even need to enrich uranium domestically. It could join
Just Iran. They've got 1 reactor, but at least 2 enrichment facilities, one of them buried hundreds of feet under a literal mountain, which the U.S. just bombed, but where otherwise the outside world has had almost no way to reach.
Iran doesn't even need to enrich uranium domestically. It could join 23 other countries that forswear enriching uranium because it is not economic.
You gotta ask yourself the question is, why does a nation with 1 single operating nuclear plant require an enrichment facility? Why does a nation with 1 single operating nuclear plant require an enrichment facility? Ask yourself the question is, why does a nation with 1 single operating nuclear plant require an enrichment facility? What hasn't quite added up for the international community about Iran's enrichment program is that they appear to be making far too little of the type of nuclear fuel that you would need to power a nuclear reactor. According to the latest numbers from the IAEA, but still prior to the airstrikes from Israel and the US, Iran's stockpile of reactor-grade uranium was just a little under 8,000 kilograms. For context, according to one nuclear industry association, that's far short of the estimated 27,000 kilograms you would need to keep a reactor of the size Iran has running every year. So for Iran to keep its Bushehr reactor running, it actually buys the uranium it needs.
Here, that's fueled by the Russians. So its immediate needs for domestically produced uranium are really non-existent.
At which point you might ask, what kind of nuclear fuel does Iran need? Well, again, according to the IAEA, Iran also has in its possession around 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. Because uranium enrichment happens on a spectrum. Enrich that uranium to around 3 to 5%, you've got reactor-grade nuclear fuel, good for a power plant. But keep going all the way to 90%. That's weapons grade, good enough to make a nuclear bomb. And those 400 kilos of highly enriched uranium in Iran's possession, it's been processed to 60%.
Enriched uranium is used for civil purposes in nuclear programs, including as fuel for nuclear reactors, but not when it's enriched to 60%, or at least not in Iran. There's no civil purposes for that.
According to the IAEA's latest assessment, the fact that Iran is the only non-nuclear weapon state in the world that is producing and accumulating uranium enriched to 60% remains a matter of serious concern, and it's been a concern for a while. Leading up to recent airstrikes in Iran, there has been mixed messaging. Tulsi Gabbard had since amended to refining its stockpile of 60% enriched uranium all the way to 90 weapons grade. Because the hardest part is simply starting the process. Once you've gotten going, it gets easier.
Okay, I guess the answer is yes. Yes, I know.
Once you go upwards of the 20%, it's easier in many respects, but the technology is the same.
Basically, all of the work is removing stuff at the beginning, going from 60 to 90%.
I mean that it will.
In general,
Not that
it's
it
likely
has
that Iran could produce enough weapons-grade uranium for up to 8 to 10 bombs within a matter of weeks. They probably produce the first bomb's work in just a matter of days.
But keep in mind, that's just the time frame to create the required fuel for a bomb. Then you have to turn it into a weapon that can be fired at an enemy far away. Iran is fully capable of building the type of ballistic missile that could, in theory, deliver a nuclear warhead. We've already seen non-nuclear versions of those missiles in Israel. But there's still a lot of uncertainty around this question of once Iran makes weapons-grade fuel, how quickly it can make a launchable weapon.
Are you saying there that the United States did not see intelligence that the Supreme Leader had ordered weaponization?
That's irrelevant. I think that question being asked in the media, that's irrelevant.
That is the key point in U.S. intelligence assessment. You know that. Yes, it was.
But setting that aside, here's what the U.S. knows, that there is a history of Iran hiding key elements of its nuclear program. There is a history of watchdog claims that Iran doesn't cooperate with inspectors. And if Iran's nuclear program was really just about nuclear power, there's a history of dots that don't connect. Uranium enrichment that should happen wrapped in an economic model that makes little sense. But what may become a more important question over time than how close did the U.S. think Iran was to making a nuke is how close are they now?
Early intelligence finds the U.S. strikes perhaps only set Iran's nuclear program back by months.
The answer to that, very few people know.
Yeah, all it takes is to know what Iran is, and then you can read the body language, which is my new specialty that will occur. I mean, the reality is anyone can read body language. You have to unlock your subconscious. So I should be able to read it in a more focused way now, is what I'm saying. Does that make sense? When I say I can really read body language, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of people in a while, so I mean, I don't know, I guess let's put that on hold, right? What I'll do is I'm gonna see how good I can read body language, let's say that. So all I have to do is let's see. Let's look at these Iranian culture. I haven't seen like friendly people on what I saw, the Rick Steves thing. Kind of like Marina Sirtis. It's like your typical Dubai. Yeah, the nice people. Okay, Indians. That's right, they're Indians. They're going to war with Indians. Okay, that actually putting it in that context, I don't like that word, but I'm gonna start using it. It's such a throwaway word, you can easily meld it to anything. In that context, when I realize they're Indian, wow, that puts a whole new perspective. Yeah, see, that's how you get it. If you don't understand something, put yourself in the middle of it, and whammo, you'll have get a connection, or get some kind of a familiarity or have it, you know, latch on to something. See if you can latch on to something, or what's another word, you know. See if this similarity, some kind of similarity, some kind of similar thing that you can utilize to understand it. Now when I say Indian, I get it. I totally get it. Alright. So I have to brain think about it.
Are Iranians closer to Arabs or Europeans?
I'll have to brain think about it. They're close to Europeans because of their Persian language compared with the Arabian. Actually, not only the language, the whole culture, ethnicity.
The answer lies in a Bronze Age civilization. Iran is home to over 85 million people. Most of them belong to various Persian-speaking groups.
Yeah, Persian means white. So what you got is white Indian.
Some people might think they are similar to Arabs, but their ancestry...
Yeah, they're not Arabs. They're the opposite. Well, not opposite. They're different. They're opposite.
It tells a very different story. The region used to be known as Persia, home to one of the world's oldest civilizations, which ruled most of...
Or variation. No, it's not a variation. They're the opposite. I mean, yeah, opposite would be white, but opposite in the context, in the context of the Middle East.
West Asia for centuries. Now their genetic makeup is quite unique. There is a link between Europeans and Iranians, as both
Exactly, Persian.
both have ancestry from the Indo-European.
Exactly, Indo-European, the Pi roots.
Who settled in the region during the Bronze Age. So what makes Iranian DNA so special? Iranians are still closer to Arabs than Europeans.
Right. Okay, so yeah, so that's what I meant in the context within the Middle East and so.
As they share two lineages from the Neolithic, the first one being farmers from the Levant region, with the other being native to the Zagros Mountains. Are Iranians closer to Arabs or...
Okay, that's great. Okay, I closed it out. Anyway, so there you go. There's the takeaway. They're Indians. Iranians are Indians. I'll have to do more research. That'll be another video. I'll close this one out. So that's a takeaway on this one, Indians.